Good morning, everybody. The Lord be with you. Thank you. You know, the work of a pastor usually takes him into the homes of many different people. In most every household that I visited over my many years as a pastor, almost invariably, in that household there were a number of pictures out on display. Maybe a family portrait hanging on the wall, or a wedding album sitting out on the coffee table, or probably, you can identify with this, pictures of grandchildren lining the stairway to another floor. However, no matter how many of these pictures were out there on display, they don't really tell the whole story of the household or the family. They're simply snapshots that capture certain moments in time, illustrating a much greater story that more often than not is still in the process of unfolding. Snapshots of the Kingdom. That's the title of my message that I want to share with you this morning, based upon the gospel just read from Matthew chapter 5. Now, there are some of these snapshots of the kingdom, as you will see, that are in the text itself, and there are some others that illustrate how the lives of some people today are being changed for the better as a result of the support that people in congregations like this one have given to Lutheran World Relief. And I want to share this with you this morning, that there are about 6,000 congregations in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and Zion here in Fort Myers is one of the top 50 congregations in terms of the support that you have given to us. However, all of these pictures are part of a much larger story of how God's kingdom comes here on earth as it is in heaven. Now, first snapshot. Look at it up here. It's the first verse of the text where Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth." Back in Jesus' day, just as it does today, salt served many good purposes: a preservative, to keep food from spoiling, an agent that facilitated healing or purification. Salt also seasons, it brings out the best in other things. In a sense, salt sacrifices itself for the sake of something other than itself. Now think about this. In salt-like fashion, Jesus gave up his life for us on the cross. He made the ultimate sacrifice of himself in order to liberate us from the power of sin, death, and the devil. Well, in the same way, Jesus has now called us to be salt in today's world. Otherwise, he said, we wouldn't be good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under the feet of people. And this is why the work of Lutheran World Relief is so important to me and to you as participants in the ministry of this congregation. Pastor Dettering has encouraged me to come here once again this morning to let you know about Lutheran World Relief in light of the fact that this still new year of 2020 is the 75th anniversary of LWR. In fact, the last convention of our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod passed a resolution encouraging all congregations at some time during this year of 2020 to observe our 75th anniversary and to find a way to continue to support our work in today's world. Well, my next snapshot takes us back 75 years. to 1945. And the slide on the screen shows how Lutherans in this country, in salt-like, sacrificial fashion, decided to respond to the humanitarian crisis in Central Europe at the close of World War II. Now, many people over there, because of all the bombing, all the devastation caused by the war, were left homeless, displaced, lots of them on the brink of starvation. And Lutheran leaders in this country, when they went over there, they saw how bad conditions were, and they just weren't going to let that go. President John W. Benken, in particular, of our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, found himself haunted by the sight of so many refugees on the roads in long queues of people just waiting for a bowl of potato soup, hopefully getting it. And still others huddled closely together in railroad stations just to keep each other warm. Well, this need became the reason that Lutheran World Relief was founded. And as you can see on the slide, Lutherans from all over this country responded immediately, providing food, clothing, financial contributions, emergency aid, and as a result, thousands of men, women, and children, such as you see in the slide here, were given the prospect of life rather than death. Over the past 75 years, our work has expanded. It now includes about 42 different countries in various places around the world. The next snapshot of the kingdom is also in our text here, in the verse that follows in Matthew 5, where Jesus says to us, "You are also the light of the world." The bright star in the east announced his coming to our darkened world to the wise men. And during his days here on earth, Jesus himself pulled back the curtain on the darkness covering God's face, because his ministry as God's own Son included and brought healing and hope to so many people whose lives were darkened by suffering, poverty, and injustice. God's incredible love for every person on the face of this earth, including you and me, is what Jesus, through his life, death, and resurrection, illuminates, brings to light for us all to see. And so he says, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bushel basket. No. The thing to do is to put that light out there on a lampstand so that everyone can see it, and it brings light to everyone in the house. So Jesus now says to each of us who has been called out of darkness by virtue of our baptisms, let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Lutheran World Relief is an organization that continues to do relief work, provide emergency assistance when there's a great crisis overseas, natural or man-made. And right now, as you can see in this slide, it's in the Middle East, because so various enemies in Syria have just created a huge refugee population. These are the kind of places where LWR quilts, personal care kits, other things, all put together in Lutheran congregations like this one, are sent. At the same time, LWR knows that handouts like these do not tend to lift other people overseas who are living in the dark hole of poverty. Here, the light of a new day comes more often through a hand up, through teaching and helping people who have been living in poverty to stand on their own 2 feet, to become self-sustaining. And development is the name for this kind of work. And as you can see on the slide, what it means is coming alongside small local farmers and teaching them, showing them ways to get out of the poverty in which they have been living. So in this regard, Lutheran World Relief, during this 75th anniversary year, has rolled out what we call cornerstone projects that I'm going to be highlighting and have been highlighting in congregations like Zion throughout this year of 2020. And here are some examples. One involves projects in various locations in the world, in Guatemala, Indonesia, Tanzania, and Kenya, and East Africa, and they're all aimed primarily at young people who are engaged in cocoa and coffee farming. Why cocoa? Why coffee? Because these are good cash crops. People everywhere in our world, I think, tend to like to drink coffee, and they like chocolate. But you see, these same young people, if they're going to stay in their communities, if they're going to have any kind of hope of ever getting out of poverty, if they're not going to try to migrate elsewhere in the world, they need training in the business side of farming. And so what you see on the screen here is a group of young people who have been brought together and engaged in a set of activities designed to build teamwork, get them to formulate a shared vision, mission, and strategy, a process that will eventually help them in setting up their own businesses, whether that involves on-farm management or an off-the-farm enterprise of some kind. Well, the final snapshot begins, verse 17 of the text. Add some perspective to the others. Jesus says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill them." Because of Jesus, everything that God commanded his people in the Old Testament to do gives his followers today a singular purpose in life. And this is what it is. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Whoever, in fact, backs this up through what they do in life as well as what they say, in Jesus' eyes, is great in the kingdom of heaven. So what Lutheran World Relief provides are opportunities for us to share our love for God with our neighbors in the world around us, the world beyond the shores of this country. LWR Cornerstone congregations are asked to make a commitment of $10,000, spread it out over a couple of years if necessary, in order to underwrite a specific project, such as the one that I've described here, focusing on young people, and another that focuses on coffee farmers in Nicaragua. This is a development effort that helps these farmers become self-sufficient by showing them how to raise better quality beans, the kind that go into LWR Farmers Market coffee. One of our partners down there sees to it that these same farmers get a fair price for what they grow in the market, and by buying this same coffee, we not only get to enjoy it, but help some people in our world get out of poverty. Well, in closing, I want to underscore what I said at the beginning of this message. As interesting as these snapshots of the kingdom may be, the kingdom ministry to which they point us goes on. And it must go on. That's why I invite you to participate in the door offering at the conclusion of this service for LWR. Stop by the display table that's out in the lobby. There you'll find some samples of LWR Farmers Market coffee, the gift catalogs. Some of you know about this. Other literature, pick it up. And once again, if you fill out a contact card, you'll be eligible for a drawing of a free bag of that Farmers Market coffee. One for every service here this morning. More importantly, however, let me say a big thank you to your pastors and to you for your ongoing support of Lutheran World Relief. You're already, as a congregation, in the top 50 in the entire LCMS. And I pray that this 75th anniversary year will be one in which you continue to provide this same kind of support, maybe even expand it so that our world can go on and be multiplied in this world of ours. Amen.